Hello, everybody. It's me, the excellent reviewer, and I wanted to do a review of the Vices series, Dark Side of the Ring, and I wanted to do one on Chris Benoit, but that was just if you watched it, then you know how it was. It's really disturbing, the second part, and it's really just sad, and I didn't want to talk about something that was like that grim and dark and depicted and stuff like that, especially the graphic details that they went over in the first episode is just, it's just not something. And plus I've talked about it on the channel before and stuff like that, but I decided like that I could talk about the second episode, which were they talking about New Jack, because it was pretty there's some pretty funny things about it. um so it starts off with the what's called where New Jack, he was watching New Jack City, and he sort of came up, hey, that like he was just like listening, and he's like, I can imagine a crowd like getting fired up and chanting New Jack, New Jack, and that's how he basically came up with the name New Jack. And so he was wrestling, and what's called his mentor, one of the things that he said was to create something that you've never seen, which I think is just a phenomenal, like what a great saying, create something that you've never seen before, you know so he goes over and he starts wrestling, and he starts to get some massive attention because he's this good talker, and he's also this really good wrestler. He even was wrestling for Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and there Jim Cornette gave him the idea of teaming up with this monster of a man called Mustafa Syed, and they would be called the Gangstas. The Gangstas, because Mustafa was, like the muscle, and New Jack was sort of like the wrestler, like the mastermind behind everything. And Mustafa was going to be like this big killer. D'Lo Brown was also, before he signed for the WWE, was apparently involved with that group as well. So they were all the Gangstas. And there's this crazy story about how Mustafa Syed would be smoking, when you roll up a blunt, but instead of weed, there'd be pencil shavings. Like pencil shaving, when you shave a pencil, and he would offer wrestlers that, hey, you want to smoke these pencil shavings? Is one of the most bizarre things in the world. Hey, you want to smoke some pencil shavings? But I don't think anyone took him up on that offer. At least I don't think so. They didn't say so in the documentary. But yeah, so the Gangstas, what's called, around this time was when NWA was around. What's called, not the National Wrestling Alliance, but the group, and as well as everything with the LA riots, with Rodney King, and the Rodney King beating specifically was something that New Jack took inspiration from. So he decided to, on the championship title match at Smoky Mountain Wrestling for the tag titles against the Rock and Roll Express, they decided they were going to recreate the 92 beatings, but this time it was going to be, instead of a black person getting beat up, it was going to be what's called I think Ricky Morton from the Rock and Roll Express. And so they threw I forgot the name, Gibson. I just know his last name. I think Scotty Gibson. They threw him out of the ring, and they proceeded, all the Gangstas, because it was like a group. They come in with police, the police sticks, and they start beating the hell out of Ricky Morton. They just beating him over, completely recreating it. And if you never heard of New Jack, then you'll know that one of the things that he's remembered for is just taking things a bit too far. They showed footage of him when he was cutting a promo. He said in the middle of the promo, he's like, hey, you know what? Congratulations, OJ. You're my boy. He's like, congratulations, oh boy, on getting off. It's one of the most hilarious things I've ever heard. And he would also like grab like baby dolls and just hang them, like, you know, like grab a rope and hang them as imagery. He did all these crazy sort of things to get, like, you know, heat, and it's fucking hilarious. Um, so after that, after the, you know, like, he's New Jack is slowly starting to make a name for himself. So he decides, what's called, he gets spotted by Paul Heyman, and, you know, next thing you know, New Jack, he goes to ECW, and he's literally a perfect fit because he's already been doing the extreme hardcore, you know, wrestling. That he's already been known for, and now they're giving him a platform in like 90s ECW, which is like the perfect place for him and Mustafa Sayed, him and the Gangstas, you know, is a perfect place for him to just go and let loose and do whatever kind of like creative stuff he wanted to do. And apparently, what's it called? They go over in the documentary about his childhood, and that New Jack had an abusive father who, at one point, had stabbed his mother 5 times in front of the whole entire family. And his mother tried to leave his father one time, and well, his father shot her in the leg for her trying to leave. It is one of the most craziest things that I have ever heard. So New Jack, he doesn't like offer it as an excuse, but he's all like, if you wonder what are the fucked up, why I do the fucked up things that I do, it's because of my childhood. Because of my childhood is because if you wonder, you know, why I do the things that I do, it's because I had a fucked up childhood, and he did, obviously. And then you can't go very, especially when you talk about what's called New Jack, you can't go too far without, of course, mentioning the mass transit incident, because, you know, it's the thing he's probably the most synonymous with is the mass transit incident. Now, if you don't know the mass transit incident, um, there's this wrestler named Mass Transit who was a big guy. He had wrestled like 3 matches before, and on an ECW house show, it was supposed to be Axel Rotten and Devon Dudley against the Gangstas, but Axel Rotten had to pull out. So in comes Mass Transit, who had caught the eye of Paul Heyman, because Mass Transit was working with these 2 midget wrestlers. So of course he caught the eye of Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman was what's called found out that Axel Rotten had to pull out, so he thought, okay, you know what? Let's give, you know, like, let's put Mass Transit in this role, you know, to fill in. So, and also the controversial thing is that, of course, he would get his ass kicked, but he had said that he was 21 at the time, when in fact he was 17. That is the controversial part to it. So, and originally I didn't know this, but the 2 midget wrestlers were supposed to be a part of that match. And you can only imagine, if the 2 midget wrestlers were apart, how New Jack would have probably, I don't know, killed them. You know, he just like he nearly killed Eric Koulos. He's because okay, so this is why apparently why New Jack had snapped at Eric Koulos, because apparently backstage, Eric Koulos had asked him, hey, what do you want to do? He's like, well, my bad. It goes like this. Koulos was like, hey, is it okay if we do this? Like, put you through a table, do these spots. And apparently, what's it called? New Jack found that incredibly insulting, as that's one of the most insulting things that you could do in wrestling, apparently. And he was already, like, pissed off at Koulos. And Koulos had said that he had wanted the blade. And he asked New Jack if he could help him blade. And I covered this on the channel. It is a question that he would inevitably regret, as, you know, New Jack, of course, during the match did help him bleed. You know, he can't say that he didn't. He can't say that he didn't, because he did. Cut him wide open in the forehead. Goes blood spilt everywhere, completely everywhere, and he got brutalized. Devon, like, I guess he could have helped him, but he was completely like they had said to Devon, okay, you're gonna get thrown out of the ring and you're not gonna come back. So in this world of hardcore wrestling, they just thought, oh, he's fine. But as we all know, Mass Transit was not fine. Mass Transit, Eric Koulos, my bad. I guess you can call him either way. Um, Koulos had also, if you look into it, there was stuff of him being arrogant backstage, being like a little bit cocky because now he was working in this big federation after only having like 3 matches. He was working for one of the big 3 promotions at the time, so apparently that also did not help as well. And it made Koulos quit the wrestling business entirely after everything happened with Mass Transit. It made him quit entirely because he was scared that something like that was going to happen again. But of course, if you didn't know, they actually arrested New Jack and they put him on trial. But of course, when the jury found out that Koulos had lied about his age, then they said, well, of course, you can't blame him for what happened because he lied about his age. Because what's called New Jack didn't know that the kid he was working with was just a kid at 17 years old. So they set New Jack free. And apparently, I might be wrong on this, but I was looking through Twitter the other day and I found out that apparently after the trial was done, someone asked him like how he felt getting off the trial, like like getting off, and he was all like, you know what, I feel like OJ Simpson. I got away with it, and he just went into a cab and he left. I've been saying on the channel for years that New Jack is fucking crazy. If you don't believe me, go back and watch my older videos, because this man is fucking crazy. Uh, the camera crew, the documentary crew, asked him if he has like, if there are any moments that he felt as though he had taken it too far. And of course, once again covered on the channel, was his match with Gypsy Joe, where he beat the shit out of this 72-year-old man, I believe, 72, yeah. Oh, it's so brutal to look back on it. It's so brutal to look back on it. And New Jack admits that a lot of the time he was either doing coke or getting high or whatever. But apparently, Gypsy Joe had called New Jack like a kid, like in the business, and New Jack had already been established in the wrestling business for quite a while, so that didn't sit well with him, thus starting the heat. And then, oh my god, he beat the shit out of this old man. And it's so hard to look at. It's so hard to look at. It's just, watch the documentary, it's like, oh, it gives you chills down your spine just looking at it. You grit your teeth. And then the last thing that they cover is was in 2004. Again, covered on it because I covered New Jack in the craziest shoot fights. But William Jason Lane wanted to wrestle New Jack on this show in 2004. And he wanted to wrestle New Jack because, he wanted to sort of elevate himself. And it was like, wrestling New Jack, that could be a great way to do that. And so the match was made. Between the two. And they were talking about what they were going to do in the match. And in the middle of New Jack telling William Jason Lane what they're going to do, all of a sudden he just apparently goes like, oh yeah, whatever. And he just gets up and he like starts cursing and then he leaves. And so New Jack is like, what the fuck is this? What is going on here? Like, what is like, what? And so he's just like, William Jason Lane's like, okay, I'll see you in the ring. And so they go in the ring, and already, within the first opening seconds of the match, William Jason Lane punches New Jack a couple of times. which, if you don't know, is already it's already not the best way to if you know the rap that New Jack has, then you'll know what's it called? He's easily triggered. So you punch him twice, and you've heard these stories. And do you think it's gonna go well for you? No. So after being punched a few times legitimately, New Jack holds William Jason Lane up against the ropes before proceeding to take out it was part of a Wolverine claw, like a gimmick thing, but one of the blades had broken off, and so that's why he kept it in his pocket. And I questioned myself in the video that I did earlier, what's called, like, why did he have this knife? It's because one of the props broke off and he put it in his pocket. So it makes sense. So he takes it off and he starts stabbing the guy 9 times. He starts stabbing him 9 times. The police, so somebody had called the police. They said, oh, this black man is shooting, my bad, stabbing this white guy. And so the police came in, and because they didn't know it was a wrestling match, but the police came in, they just heard the stabbing, baba, like get down on the floor and stuff like that. And they arrested New Jack and they put him in jail. Apparently the next day, William Jason Lane had said to him, he's like, hey, I want to drop the charges, but on one condition. And so New Jack's like, what the hell's the condition? And so apparently he had wanted to do it into an angle. He had wanted to work into an angle that, like, oh, William Jason Lane is coming out for revenge, and he's like, we could fight all over Florida, wrestle all over Florida and stuff like that. And New Jack's like, okay. He's like, just drop the charges then. So, like, after, I think, like, it was either a few days or a few weeks, the charges were finally dropped, and New Jack was let out of prison. But New Jack didn't want to work that angle, so he just packed his stuff and left from Florida. I just think that's so weird. I don't know why. It's just like, hey, yeah, let's do this gimmick. Let's do this gimmick. Let's do this angle. And the thing is, it would be like, it caught national attention, I guess. I'm pretty sure it did. But, like, there was, like, probably less than 30 people in that whole entire house show, inside that whole entire event, and they wanted to do an angle on it. They wanted to do an angle on it, and I just think that's crazy. And maybe it could have worked. I guess it could have worked. I don't think it personally would have. But I don't, I don't think it would have worked. But hey, you gotta do something for the business. I mean, you gotta do something for the business. And that's sort of the end of the documentary, with the final thing being said. They said, hey, they asked New Jack, if you were, if they were to make a movie about your life, what would be the last thing that we'd see? And apparently he said, he's all like, I just want to be smoking crack and saying, fuck y'all bitches, with his middle finger in the air. Oh my god, honestly, you need to check out this documentary. There's some stuff I left out just because I didn't want to completely spoil it for you. But New Jack is hilarious. He is hilarious. And honestly, after watching the depressed and dark and everything in the word of darkness and sadness that was the Chris Benoit conspiracy. No, my bad, conspiracy. Sorry, I had some guy talk to me about that the other day, that there was a conspiracy theory, and I'm all like, no, there's not a conspiracy theory. If you think there's a conspiracy theory, you're dumb as fuck. But getting away from the darkness of the Chris Benoit murders was just like a fresh of breath air, a breath of fresh air, because New Jack is really funny. New Jack is really funny, and the things that he says and the things that he does in the documentary is hilarious. like barring the, the assault, barring all of the assault and the stabbings and stuff like that, it's hilarious. What's it called? One of a former promoter said that in deep down, New Jack is just a comedian. He's just a comedian. That's all that he is. And um and it's just like he is just really like, like he's just really funny. He's really funny. But yeah, no, it takes a breath of fresh air after everything that we saw in the first episode. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you check out the Dark Side of the Ring New Jack second episode. I don't know what the third episode is gonna be. Maybe if it continues, we could do like an episode by episode review of Dark Side of the Ring, just depending on how this one goes. I don't know. I just wanted to do it because I figure, like while we're in the quarantine lockdown and stuff like that, I might as well, just might as well do it. But yeah, do me a favor. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. If you've seen the Dark Side of the Ring review, if you've seen not the review, but if you've seen the Dark Side of the Ring, the New Jack episode, let me know what you guys thought about it in the comment section below. Make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe button. I've been Samuel V, aka the Excellent Reviewer, and I'll see you all as soon as I can. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there, and that you guys are just being safe. Because in these times, like we need to be safe and we need to be there for each other. So, with that being said, this has been the Excellent Reviewer. Goodbye and good night.